guys, it's Sarah, and today I'm going to be doing the start of a video that's going to be 6 months in the making. It's going to be a very interesting experiment for me, I think. Now, what I wanted to do was I wanted to give Book of the Month a try. Book of the Month is a subscription service that you can pick from 5 different books that are picked, and you can get them in a monthly subscription box. It's pretty affordable. I'll have all the details of Book of the Month linked down below if you guys want to go check it out. But there are 5 new releases that you can pick from. Some of them you're going to get before the release date even, which is pretty cool. I think you can get the chance to get a book very early, and you get to pick one a month, and that's really cool. And then you do have options to pick more than one if you want to for discounted prices. But basically you're getting new releases for very good prices. And I wanted to give Book a Month a try. However, I'm not wanting to buy the books because we all know that I had a huge issue at the beginning of the year with how many unread books I had on my shelves. And, I went through a big purge and did all the things. So I didn't want to buy a book a month from the service because I didn't want to be bringing those books into my house. So what I'm going to do instead is every month when they announce what the 5 options are, I'm going to look at those books and kind of pretend if I were picking from these for Book of the Month, which one would I have picked? And I'm going to get my hands on that book, but I'm going to take that book and I'm going to read it and see what I think. That way, at the end of 6 months, I have read 6 months worth of Book of the Month picks, what I would have picked, and it would give me a good idea on whether I think Book of the Month would be worth it. I'm going to take you guys along this journey with me, so everything will be in this video. I'm going to tell you the books for each month that I end up picking, and then I will do a follow-up after I read the book and let you know what my thoughts were. So it's not going to be a huge reading vlog where it's going to be very detailed or anything, but it'll be, this is the book I picked for January. I'm going to start reading it now, and then what I felt about it after I finish it. So I'm very excited about this project. I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's see if I think Book of the Month would work for me. All right, so let's start with January. So of the 5 books that were available for the January's picks, I knew immediately which one I wanted to pick up and read, and that is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Now, this is an actual Book of the Month physical book that I have. It is my copy. The reason I have a copy of this right now is because one of my subscribers, Sandy, actually sent me a message and let me know that her January box got sent to her twice by accident. And so she said, I have 2 books. If you're interested, these are the books. They told me to just give them away to somebody. Would you like them? And I was like, yes, because I'm doing this project. I haven't told anybody about it yet, so nobody knows I'm doing this. And this was one of her picks. So I absolutely jumped on that because I am able to get a copy of the book. I was definitely going to read it, and it was part of this project. So it was really perfect. So thank you again, Sandy, for sending me your extra box. It was awesome. So we are going to do this for January. I have heard about this book before it was announced for Book of the Month, and I already knew I wanted to read it. So it was a very easy pick for me for the January box because this was already on my radar to read. I actually tried to get a copy of this from the Bookish First review site because it was available one week and I didn't get picked for it. So I had tried to get a copy of this one and didn't get it, but now I have it, and I'm going to go ahead and start reading it now. So I will come back after I'm done and I will let you know what my thoughts were. Okay, I just finished this like 30 seconds ago. And I am shook, you guys. What did I just read? Okay, I spent most of the book thinking it was maybe going to be a 4-star. It was all very interesting, and I was wanting to keep going and find out what was happening and what was real and what wasn't. It's one of those books where you don't, I didn't even have any theories because I didn't know. Nothing is cut and dry. I didn't trust anybody in here. And I just wasn't sure. I was like, where is this going? I don't understand where, like, I didn't know where it was going to go, which is a good thing. I think if some things were a little bit too obvious, that would not be good. So it definitely keeps you guessing because you don't really know. And then the last 100 pages hit. And okay. And that's all I can say. That's all I can say. I will say no more. But it's a 5-star. Well done. Okay, so first book for book of the month for my January pick is a 5-star read. Hey guys. Okay, so let's talk February. For book of the month, my pick for February is going to be On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. Now, this is a book I do not own physically, but I do have the audiobook for this one. I found it on Scribd. So I'm going to listen to it. I think listening to it is going to be beneficial for me because there is, this surrounds a girl who wants to be a rap star. Her father was a rap legend in underground kind of rap battles type thing. And she's trying to, get into that scene as well. And there is rapping in this book. So I think me listening to it is going to get me a little bit more out of it because if I try to rap in my head, it's going to be a hot mess. Let's be real. So I think someone doing it for me is going to be beneficial for me and much less embarrassing. So I'm excited to read this. I have not read anything by Angie Thomas. I did not read The Hate U Give yet, but it is something that is on my radar to read at some point. I just haven't done it yet. But I'm going to start with this one because it is one of the February Book of the Month choices. And this is one that when I saw the choices, this was the one that stood out to me that I would probably pick up. So I'm going to listen to it and I will let you know what I think when I'm done. Okay, guys. So today I finished On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. And I did listen to an audio. I definitely recommend the audiobook. The narrator is fantastic. And she does the rapping and all that stuff. And I enjoyed this book. So this one got a 4-star for me. The reason I didn't give it a full 5 is because the main character, Bree, kind of bothered me a lot. She was very impulsive. She made a lot of decisions that were not very smart decisions. She's only 16. And she seemed to make decisions that really had a big effect on her life and the people around her and her family without thinking them through and without thinking about or listening to some of the consequences people were giving her. Because people were telling her, hey, if you do this, this is probably going to happen. And she went and did it anyway. So the basic premise of this book is that 16-year-old Bree, her father was a rap legend. He was killed. And she wants to follow in his footsteps and be a rap legend herself. She loves rapping. She loves making music. And she's pretty good at it. And so she starts getting herself on the track to do that, right? She ends up making the song that she was very passionate about. She did it, in response to something really awful that happened to her at school. And she rapped about it and put it into a song. And it immediately blows up. But the way that she portrayed herself in the song was not really authentic to who she actually is. And she gets backlash from that publicly. And it's understandable why she got backlash from it. But she spent the whole time telling everyone else that they're wrong when she's the one who's presenting herself this certain way and she knows she's presenting herself in a false way. And all she says is, that's not what I meant. That's not how you're supposed to take it. But that's how you presented it. So it drove me nuts. And she never really owned up to that. So I didn't like that. I don't feel like she ever really took full responsibility for the way that she handled things. She let dangerous people into her life, which I didn't like, and kind of continued to do that. And I don't know. So I did knock off a star because of that. But entertainment-wise, I loved it. It was very entertaining. I liked the way that the story went. I liked the other characters a lot. And yeah, so it was good. It made me laugh a lot too. Like there were some really funny, like good character dynamics that made me laugh and I thought they were funny. So overall, I really enjoyed it. It was 4 stars. Just wish I had a little bit more character development from Bree, but yeah, so book number 2 is a 4-star read. All right, guys, so March. Let's talk about my pick for March. This one was an easy one for me. As soon as I saw the books that were available for the month of March, I said that one because I pre-ordered it. So I already had a copy and I was just super excited that it showed up. And that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is one that I am incredibly excited to read. I've heard amazing things about it and I'm excited to get started. I'm going to get started today. So I do have the audiobook for this one downloaded already. So I will be listening to this one versus reading it. I'm going to start out doing both, like listen and read along in the book for a little while, because this one is told in an interview format. If you can can you see that? It's hard to do it one-handed. But this is about a singer named Daisy Jones and a band named The Six, and they come together and make an album and then very quickly have a huge falling out. Nobody knows why, nobody knows what happened, and this is them telling their story years later about what happened and why and all that stuff. So it's been kind of compared to the VH1 show, what was it called? Behind the Music, I think, is that what it was called, where they would interview bands and people who traveled with them and everything and kind of tell some stories from the road. That's what basically this is going to be just like. There's multiple narrators, like a ton of narrators. So yeah, I am incredibly excited to start this. I'm going to start it today. Hopefully it will be something that I read through really quickly and I won't want to put it down. I have a feeling it will be. And yeah, so happening right now. Okay, guys, I finished this. Easy 5 stars. Easy. And the audiobook, I cannot recommend highly enough. That was one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to, ever. It's fantastic. Has a full cast. All of them read their parts perfectly. So we're following Daisy Jones and the Six. Daisy Jones is a singer in the 70s. She's just trying to make a name for herself. She ends up teaming up with this band who's already a little bit established. They're called The Six, and they make this album together. They start off with just one song, and it's a great hit. It turns into an album, which is kind of considered one of the best rock albums ever type thing. But they break up in the middle of a tour after this album is made, and you see why. You see what happened to break them up, and every single person in the band, played a part in that. It wasn't just Daisy. And you see these characters really struggle. There's a lot of drug use in here, some sex, but a lot of drugs. So if drug use is something you're not comfortable with, then definitely don't read this one, because this was set in the late 70s. In a rock and roll group, and that was kind of very prevalent in that time. So but it was fantastic. And the way this is told, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much if I had not listened to it, because it is interview format, and it's the band being interviewed later in life, reflecting on their time and what happened and everything. So I think listening to it is definitely the way to go. I think I would have still enjoyed it if I had read it physically, but maybe not as much. It might have been more of a 4-star, but the fact that I read it or listened to it, and I could clearly picture everything that was happening, and just hearing the emotion in the narrators' voices was just, it made it so good. It really did. I don't know if I would have read it that well in my head. I really don't think I would have. Fantastic. So easy 5 stars for me. Loved this book. Okay, guys, so let's talk about the month of April. So for April, I really had to do my research because there were a few books that I just had never heard of before. So I really went through them and read the synopsis of each one and had to say, okay, which one would I pick up right now and buy? So I am going to read Beyond the Point by Claire Gibson. So this one caught my eye because it follows 3 women who join West Point. I think straight out of high school, like this is their college, they go to West Point. And while they are there, I believe a 9/11 happens and how that changes the course of everybody's lives. I want to read more books that kind of have 9/11 as either a backdrop or just, like that's a big plot point in the book, because it's just, I still remember that day vividly in my head. I think most of us do who remember that, who were like, around and old enough to remember that. So I'm definitely interested in reading, books that have that as a feature. So that's what made me pick this one up. And this was very, very kindly sent to me through a book exchange that I did. And I'm super excited to read it. So we are going to read this one and I will let you know what my thoughts are. Hey guys. Okay. So I just finished Beyond the Point by Claire Gibson. And oh my gosh, I love this book. This one was a 5-star read. This one was definitely something that gave me big time, just military life in general vibes, which that's been my entire life. I'm a military brat. I'm now a military spouse. So it was a different branch than what my husband and my dad were in, but it's still, a lot of the traditions are very similar, and I'm sitting there reading it and reading what they're going through, and I'm like, yep, like, definitely things like that happen. There was a character in here who I really related to, and just, she reminded me of a lot of women that I have met in, just like military lifestyle. And then she also reminded me a little bit of myself as well. Like I could see some of my own characteristics in her. So she was kind of my favorite. And there was a quote in here that I really, really loved to the point where I wrote it down, which I don't do very often. I loved this one. I really, really loved this one. I had a feeling I was going to really like it, but I didn't know I was going to love it that much. And it was good. There was something in here that even shocked me. And I loved it so much. I thought it was fantastic. These women are incredible and strong and flawed. And you really feel for them. Sometimes you get angry at them because some of them don't make very good decisions. But the way that they handle themselves is really admirable. So I absolutely, absolutely love this. This also touches on a bunch of different topics. There's, sexual harassment in here. There's dealing with an injury, which is really hard. It was definitely kind of career ending type thing. And grief as well. There's some grief in here too. So, so good. I loved it. Like, this is going to... one of my definite most recent favorites. So loved this one. Okay, guys, now let's talk about my pick for May. May was also a pretty easy one because it was a book that I already had and I knew I wanted to read it. And I actually got it for review. I got an arc of it from the publisher, which is super awesome. But my pick for May... And then when I actually looked at the other ones too, I was like, actually, I'd probably pick that one. And it wasn't just because I already had it. Like, I actually would. Is How Not to Die Alone by Richard Roeper. So this one is a contemporary, and it follows a man who works with the government somehow. And this is set in London, I believe. And he is in charge of... contacting the next of kin for people who have passed away, but they don't have any obvious known next of kin. So not only does he need to try to contact the next of kin, he actually has to go to their place of residence and look through their things and try to find somebody who can, help or claim or, go through all this stuff for this person who has passed away. And among all this, that's not an easy job, but he is also dealing with some things with his office and the work and people he works with and stuff. I think there's some sort of things he's letting people believe that are not quite true about him. that type of thing. I have heard this is a pretty good mix of Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine and The Office, and I was immediately intrigued when I heard that. So this is my pick for May. We're going to go ahead and read it, and I will let you know what I think. Hey guys, okay, so I just finished How Not to Die Alone by Richard Roeper, and I really enjoyed this one. This one was definitely a character-driven book, so it was more about the characters than, crazy plot twists and things like that, but I still really enjoyed it. I really, really did. So this main character, his name is Andrew, and he works for the British government in a capacity where he has to notify the next of kin of people who have passed away. However, he specializes in people who passed away where they don't have an obvious next of kin. And it's something where, he has to go through their house, he has to go through their stuff, he has to try to locate somebody who can kind of claim responsibility for these people, and it doesn't always work out that way. He also ends up needing to attend the funerals of the people. He doesn't, have to. His job doesn't say he has to, but he feels a very big pull to do that so that these people can, have someone to help lay them to rest. He's also in a situation at work where he has let everyone believe that he is married with 2 children. And he's not. He's single and he lives in kind of a rundown apartment. It just kind of happened accidentally and he just never corrected anybody. And he's kind of gone on this charade where, he has invented this family for himself. And, that takes a mental toll on him for sure. The reason it starts becoming a problem is because he ends up working with a new person. Her name is Peggy, and he starts developing feelings for her. But how can he pursue that when she thinks he's married with children? So very, very good. I ended up giving it 4 stars. And I really, really pleasantly, surprisingly enjoyed it. All right, guys, so let's talk about June. So my pick for book of the month for the month of June, if I were to be a subscriber, and what I would have picked would have definitely been Recursion by Blake Crouch. So this was actually sent to me from my friend Beth, so thank you, Beth. And I definitely would have picked this one because I loved his book Dark Matter, and I also loved his Wayward Pines trilogy. Like, both of those I could not put down, especially the Wayward Pines. I could not put it down. And then Dark Matter was, basically the same way. I loved it so much. And so when I heard he was coming out with this one, I knew I wanted to read it. It was actually on my most anticipated releases for 2019. So when it popped up for Book of the Month, I was like, well, that's obviously going to be my pick for June, definitely. And I'm going to go ahead and read this one. This one I also have on audio from Scribd as well. My mom actually listened to it, so I'm going to grab it, I think, on audio as well and give that one a try and see what I think. But I'm very excited to read this one. So let's read this one and see what I think. All right, guys, so I just finished Recursion by Blake Crouch. And I really enjoyed this book. I think I read the first chapter physically, and then I grabbed the audiobook because I listened to the audiobook of Dark Matter and I really liked it. And same with this one, I really liked it. It was still easy to follow. I pretty much knew what was happening the whole time. Some of the science stuff can go over your head a little bit, but it's still interesting, and I still was able to follow what was happening. I loved the concept of being able to go back in time and prevent something from happening. There's a really great narrative in here about that, and kind of, do you do that? And it was a situation where some of our characters found themselves in a position where they could prevent a school shooting. They could prevent a serial killer from killing people. Like, they could prevent all these really terrible things happening, and they had to decide, are we playing God by doing that, or are we playing God by not doing that? And it was really, really interesting. I really liked it. It got very tricky when the military started wanting to get involved in this project and they found out what was happening or what they had the power to do. It was so interesting. And I don't want to give too much away, obviously, because you need to read it, but it was really good. It really makes you think. Did I like it better than Dark Matter is the big question. A lot of people, since the both of those books are kind of, science fiction and dealing with, different dimensions of time, basically. Which one did I like better? I think I like Dark Matter a little bit better, but I think it's because that was one of the first science fiction books that really just blew my mind out of the water. And so I wasn't surprised that this one was as good as it was, if that makes any sense. So this one I gave 4 stars. And the reason is because a couple of times I found myself a little bit confused. I had to get used to the timelines and where they were, when the chapters happened, like where they were as far as time goes and all that. So that was a little bit harder to piece together than it was for me with Dark Matter. So that's why I gave it a 4, but I loved it. Like, Blake Crouch has not steered me wrong yet. So, yeah, loved it. Okay, guys, so 6+ months in the making. It took me a little bit longer than 6 months to, get all these books acquired and to read them and everything. But my final thoughts on this project are that it was a big success. So let's go through real quick what I read and what my final thoughts were on everything. All right, so for January, The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, 5 stars. Definitely my favorite thriller of the year. February was On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, and that one was a 4 stars. The audiobook is fantastic. March was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Also listened to this on audiobook, which I cannot recommend high enough. Definite 5 stars. I loved this book. For April was Beyond the Point by Claire Gibson. I loved this book. I related to this book so much, and I gave this one 5 stars. For May, How Not to Die Alone by Richard Roper, and I really enjoyed this one and gave it 4 stars. And for June was Recursion by Blake Crouch. Loved this one too. Gave it 4 stars. I didn't like it quite as much as his first book, but it was still incredibly interesting, and I loved the narrative that was happening with it, and I gave this one 4 stars. So of the 6 books that I read, I gave 3 of them 4 stars and 3 of them 5 stars. So do I think that book of the month would work for me? Absolutely. Because I gave all of them for the past 6 months based on the choices and what I would have picked. I gave them each 4 or 5 stars, which to me, those are really great books. And I would be very happy with my choices if I were actually paying for this subscription to the service. So absolutely, I think book of the month would be worth it for me personally. And then even seeing what some of the choices have come out since June, like every single month I'm going, oh, I really want to read that book. Oh, I really want to read that book. So, been a little bit jealous that the project is over because there were other books that I really wanted to keep, I wanted to keep going with this. But I definitely feel that if I were paying for book of the month, that I feel the money would be worth it for me to spend based on my reading experience for it. Hey guys, that's going to be it for me today. Let me know down below if you guys subscribe to Book of the Month. Do you just kind of look and see what the options are and then read them on your own? Do you pay for the subscription? All that stuff. Let me know if you guys use this service, and if you do, if you think it's worth it. And if you don't, do you think it would be worth it for you as well? Let me know what all your thoughts are down below, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Hope you have a great day. Bye.